all so much for being here tonight. My name is Amanda Cooper. I'm the curator for the Morean Arts Center, and we're happy to see you guys come out and support our amazing artists. Is this anyone's first time here at the Morean? Just curious. Everyone's been here before? Terrific. That's great. Well, we are very excited to have Arthur Skinner and Joe Skinner, because it makes you sound like a couple when I say it the other way. Arthur Skinner and Joe Skinner's work here during this time. The show has been up since the middle of January, and it's been very well received by our visitors. And she's not here this evening, but one of the reasons we have this exhibition here is because of Betsy Lester, who, does anybody here know Betsy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. She has been installing our exhibitions for, I think, almost 40 years here at the Morean, a long time. And as you know, if you know her, she graduated from Eckerd College and now teaches there. And she is always giving me suggestions of things that shows we should have here, which I really appreciate. And one of them was, you need to have an exhibition of Arthur Skinner and Joe Skinner's work. And so I said, okay, and messaged Arthur, and he agreed to it, Joe agreed to it. Thank you for that. And it's been a fantastic exhibition. One thing that I have loved doing in my time here as curator is showing artwork by artists who are multi-generational artists, fathers, sons, or just some kind of family member, husbands and wives, and brothers and sisters. We've had a lot of shows like that over the years, and it's just something that I'm really drawn to. I think that's it. I'm going to let them talk because they're much more interesting to hear from. I will say Arthur has a long history here with us at the Art Center. He had a solo show here in 1974, which was the year I was born. I was not here. And many other shows other than that. I think that was the only solo show we've had here. So, and by the way, yes, not his. The one on 7th Street, so I'm assuming. And also, this is their first show together, which I was very surprised to hear because I think your work works together so wonderfully. Okay. So first we're going to hear from Arthur, then we're going to hear from Joe. And then we'll have questions at the end. And hopefully all the technology will work.
Well, thank you, Amanda, for your generous invitation to have this amazing opportunity. And thank you, Betsy in absentia, for suggesting that to Amanda. And thank you for being here. Okay. Now, these are a little pixelated, so these are all going to be, you can see them better over there. To talk about them, it's long to have them here. This would. This is a photo etching in Aquatech made in 1979 when I had hair. It's a self-portrait, obviously, and it began with a pinhole photograph, which is about this big, okay, this big. It was one of my first pinhole photographs. Pinhole photography is my favorite photography. But this was made with John Eckert's pinhole camera. He insisted on using brush and stock for the pinhole. Okay. But anyway, this self-portrait was made upstairs in Ransom Marsh. You may recognize that. Any of you remember Ransom Marsh? So, photo etching in Aquatech was what I did. I once called myself a printmaker. I can't really call myself a printmaker anymore because I don't do prints in this way. Photo etching in Aquatech was what I did. We had in those days photosensitized plates, zinc plates with a photosensitive emulsion on it, and we expose them under a bright light and develop them in this most toxic stuff. I mean, the incredibly toxic chemistry. They don't do that anymore. I mean, and so, okay, I had to stop at a certain point when they stopped making those plates because they're incredibly toxic stuff. But this is what I did. Photo etching in Aquatech. So I made that pinhole photograph, then I made a film positive using a dot stream. In fact, if you look closely at that print, you'll see the dot stream. And then exposing it, and then aquatinting over that. This is two plates, so the sky is a separate plate. So aquatint, including the photo etched image. So again, this is what I did. all through graduate school and for the first 10 years or so after that. And this one also is a photo etching in aqua tint. It started with this image here, which I simply made a collage of. I simply removed, I don't even remember doing it, but I cut the hands off and put them over her eyes, and then I proceeded to go through several different states. And this is the one thing I loved about etching in those days was I was able to take it through different stages. This is where it started. And so, again, photo etching and aqua tint. So I had a whole different sense there. I had a barricade at the back, a landscape, and sky, and then I scraped it away, and then I scraped it away some more, and then I even tried to color, you know? And this is what I loved about the process was the etching. For me, the etching wasn't done until the plate had suffered. You know, I had to go all these processes, scraping, adding, subtracting, and then finally, I just decided to stop, okay? I was kind of searching for what I was doing with this image. And so, in fact, the title originally was Unresolved Woman, because I was still figuring it out. I just stopped. Okay, this is where it ended. And in fact, I changed the title for this exhibition. It's now titled Blinded, because that's really what it was all about, putting my hands over her eyes. So the title is now Blinded. But again, photo etching and aqua tint was what I did, and I don't do it anymore. And there is a new process called solar plate etching, which is actually, you're developed with water, you're exposed with the sun. It sounds wonderful, but you can't do anything with a plate. It's one shot. It's done. So maybe one day I'll warm up to it, but for right now, solar plate, you can't scrape it, you can't add anything to it. It's just one shot. So anyway, one day maybe. So after some years, I still wanted to integrate photography into printmaking, and so I went into the darkroom. And for me, the photo process in this way was a backdoor into printmaking. These are prints, but using the darkroom. The framing you see around the background is a high contrast sheet film, which I found it was actually exposed before, and so that framing is actually just came with what I found, the high contrast sheet film. And multiple steps here, back and forth, and you can see I scratch, X scratches, I scratch in the film. But this one includes some image elements, the foreground, the rubble there, and then that framing of the architectural framing in the background, actually images from the Sereno Hotel. The Sereno Hotel, if you, those of you who've been here in St. Pete for a while, used to stand down there, and they're close to the Vinoy. It was imploded during the filming of Lethal Weapon 3. Horrible, against all opposition from preservationists, including me. You know, horrible scene to watch that film. But interestingly for me, the hotel was designed by the firm of G. Lloyd Preacher, firm based in Atlanta, for whom my uncle Arthur, for whom I am named, worked as an architect. And as I was going through the Smith correspondence, which I did in 1986 and 87, I came across a postcard that my great uncle Arthur wrote from St. Petersburg. So I had every reason to believe that my uncle Arthur, for whom I am named, was involved in the design of the Sereno. So it has some personal significance for me. So I put that behind there. The image you see of the wretch, this is called A Witch Like Me Too. Excuse me. But that's actually a photograph that the silhouette of me is a photograph Joe helped me make. I look this way and then that. And Joe made the photograph. But it's sandwiched over a broken sidewalk, which is for me a metaphor. The pattern, you'll see broken sidewalks all throughout the show here. The idea of the pattern still being discernible, broken, but still being held together is an important thing for me. So sandwiching this negative and then incorporating all these other things. Each of these prints would take 12 or 13 steps to make. And it would take me a month to get one that I was happy with. So this is A Wretch Like Me Too. And this was A Wretch Like Me 1. Again, same process. You can see it, those little squibbly things are light trails. Again, so again, just layering, X, light trail, flip it, and then another sandwich of a profile over a broken sidewalk. And so again, another Wretch Like Me. So this is part of an ongoing, slowly evolving series of Amazing Grace series. I have some other images that are not here, following along phrases and words from Amazing Grace, but this is A Wretch Like Me. Then follows this self-portrait, which I call my autoritratto numerico, which means numerical self-portrait. And this is my self-portrait in numbers. I'm intrigued by the idea of how numbers are important to us and how we can identify with numbers. So this is in chronological order, my life beginning with the birth date of my father to the date of his death. And in between are all manner of numbers for which, and Katrina has, 407, 1982. My extended family, when we say 1982, that's the address, that's where I grew up, in Decatur, Georgia. 1982 is a circle, but we just refer to it as 1982. That's the number. When my wife and I talk about when we lived in the old Northeast, we say when we lived at 407, okay? That's 407, 10th Avenue Northeast, but we don't say, just say 407, and we know, okay? So in all this sequence, there's significant years, transitional years, 1968, 1972, 1976, major transitions in my life, addresses, phone numbers, significant dates, birth dates, all chronological order. So that's my self-portrait. And you'll see again my profile. And behind that is an atrium of a hotel that my Uncle Arthur designed in Atlanta. So I'm just kind of layering over again in the dark room. Begin my drawings. Again, these are a little pixelated so you can see it better on the wall of it, of course. But from photo etching, I've turned mostly to drawing. After that, and then I went back to the dark room. But mostly what I've done since not becoming a printmaker, not being a printmaker anymore, has been drawing. And mostly what I do in drawing is graphite. So this drawing here, it's called Romantic Landscape with Debris, is the first of an ongoing series of imaginary landscapes featuring debris. And this started in the upper corner with the clouds, and I just worked my way down. I don't preconceive my drawings. I don't look at any photo references. They just appear on the page. They just grow on the page. So I just started in the upper corner with the clouds, and then the landscape appeared, and then the debris happened. And that's how the process evolves. It's, again, not preconceived, and I don't look at photo references when I draw. The three here in the middle are interesting in as much as they are imaginary views of the same place, okay? The same imaginary place. And in the midst of it, you see a ruined abbey, or ruined church, which identifies me as a romantic, because that's something that romantics did, was focusing on ruined abbeys and ruins. And that's important to me. But this was unusual for me in taking three different perspectives of the same imaginary place here. We'll go through them one by one. This one here was actually the last of the series here. This is an imaginary view. The twisting of chain link fence, the barricades, the ruin and the approaching storm. These were all significant elements to me. And interestingly, this was on display at a one-person show I had at Eckerd College in Georgia. And it was on the far end of a wall in a building that my dad had designed. And there was a door there, and I opened the door, and there was a wall that looked just like the wall on the lower left. Seriously, it was like, what is it? Okay. The second drawing in this series, again, I didn't imagine it as a series, they just one happened one after the other here. But this is, again, rubble here, this rubble could be anywhere. The clouds, a little hint of blue every now and then, a hint of blue. But my favorite colors are black, white, and blue. That's all I use, really. I don't use any other colors. But for me, the blue is the proverbial hint of hope. In this, those two people don't have any identity. They're just people wandering around the corner. Barricades are frequent there. You see again the broken sidewalk. And this is the Moon and Venus. This is the most intense use of blue I've ever used. This is charcoal. Again, I usually work graphite. This is charcoal and a very intense color pencil. Those two figures have no identity. They're just kind of walking past. Maybe they could even own Venus too. But anyway, just the ruined church. This one is titled Sidewalk. Again, I'm just fascinated with debris. Our own fascination with debris. And when we see disasters, we just kind of we're entranced by, oh my gosh, the ruin. And this is a close view, and you see the broken sidewalk. But you also see the cautionary cone and some image elements that I frequently return to as metaphors. The coat hanger, for example, for me, it's an extension of the metaphor of Pablo Neruda's poem "Death Alone," in which he compares death to a suit without its wearer, a ring without its finger. So for me, extending the metaphor, a coat hanger without its coat, because a coat hanger has a profile of shoulders and a neck and a head. So it has a kind of a personality, if you will. The empty envelope, either the contents removed or the return envelope never sent. I mean, these things, these image elements are kind of recurring theme. And then the brick, the brick, that element of construction here, and then the halo, and the cautionary cone. You also see in the lower right a 35mm slides. And a real close view. This was actually done in 1-point perspective. I rarely do that, but this is 1-point perspective. And this one, which I actually made 2019, so way before the hurricanes, it looks like, oh, I was looking at hurricane debris. Nope, this at the time was unimaginable debris. No, it's not unimaginable anymore. but the difference being this is in the middle of the road and not by the side. This is titled Imaginary Long View. You'll see here and there signs that are facing the other way. The signs are visible, but what they say is not discernible. That idea. I started this drawing on the sign itself. If you look closely at it, you'll see very carefully the little dots in the sign post. And I make those, but I have a little tool with a very, not a sharp point, but a small point. I very carefully press into the paper, because I use a hard surface paper. Very press into the paper, very measured, so, which enabled me then to draw a graphite over, and those dots will still be there. So that's where I started, and then the landscape grew, just a pile of debris. The barricade, you see the shapes, the cone, the shape of the sign, the shapes of the trapezoidal barricade there, and again, you see the billboard that this is, but it doesn't say anything. But the clouds, the pattern of the clouds, the bright sun, again, I enjoy the sense of drawing around it to make the sun brighter. I didn't use white. The white is the white of the paper, but drawing around it, you can make the sun bright. And this one here actually is an illustration. I rarely illustrate, but this is an illustration from the Book of Tobit. The Book of Tobit. This is titled Raphael and Tobias leaving the city being the city of Nineveh. This is in the Book of Tobit. Raphael is the guardian angel who accompanies Tobias on his perilous journey. And there's a long story here. I'm not going to recite the whole story here, but in the story, there's a nameless dog. And so you see the dog there on the left. I don't know if you can see it well on the screen, but you see it over there. Anyway, Raphael only identified himself as an angel at the end of the story. Up to that point, he was just somebody accompanying Tobias on this perilous journey. And there's moments of healing and other things going on. There are miracles, etc. So anyway, again, you see the broken sidewalk, and you see vegetation, and you see the halo, the shapes in the sky. And this drawing is the oldest one. I actually don't even know the exact year. I think it's dated on the sign of 2001. I think it's earlier. I think it's sometime in the 1990s. This is one of two drawings I've done using parallel perspective. It's not 1-point but parallel perspective. And I hadn't looked at this drawing in a long time, but when I looked at this in preparation for the show, I thought, yeah, that's pretty good. So it's not for sale. I'm going to keep it for a little while longer, but just that. I also typically work in a vertical format, to give the sense of space, going back and back and back and back, but also patterns. Patterns are an important thing, not only hexagonal sidewalks, but you see the floor pattern, you see the brick pattern. I sometimes think I was a brick mason in a former life. but also the light, the street light, the street lamp, the light against dark, the dark against light, the light coming through the doorway there. All these things are important aspects of the symbol. And then the graveyard, the cemetery corpse. I mean, that also makes me romantic too. And this, the last of the drawings here, the imaginary suburb. Again, I started with a signpost, just a dot, and then graphite over it. But again, you see jet trails, you see wires, one line wrapped around another, and then the tree, the bricks, the signpost, the geometry of the signs, and the movement of the line, and the movement and the jet trails in the sky. An original, early on, I had a couple of figures in there, but they didn't need to be there, so I erased them out. Anyway, imaginary suburb. This is again, imaginary spaces, not preconceived. They just happen. They just grow on the page. I don't plan them out. I just start to draw. I started on the signpost, and then the landscape emerged. And you see an imaginary suburb. And now I will turn it over to Joe.
Pops is a man of few words, and this is the most I've ever heard. And I had a whole spiel, everything ready to go for this. And now I got to remember it because the entire time while I was watching that, I was just all connecting the dots and how I got to where I am. And maybe even started with the hands behind the eyes and collage. I wish that you talked about that piece a little bit more because I have my students currently working on a forced collage, but also even the why you fell in love with printing, the options of like where you went to color and whatnot. When I got to grad school, I was told that I was just I couldn't choose, or that I didn't have the right way to go. But I needed to choose one path. I was like, well, printmaking, I can do everything, and just choose what I like most. But also like in the terms of presentation, like whenever I give a PowerPoint, I tend to speed up a lot. Whenever I get excited about something, and I found seeing you present, it's like, oh, that's why I call it. But anyway, we'll get into how I geared my presentation. It's a little different than the Pops, whereas he included things that are in the show. I thought that were already in the show. I would include what's not in the show to show you how I got here. And I think I can hit the right button. Sorry. Okay, so you'll notice a lot of this work in this body of work is my most recent work, and it's been a fascination of mine of chance and probability. And how I got here is through a coin flip. And actually not just one coin flip, multiple coin flips. And so actually this is the first piece that I ever created in grad school. It was a rapid fire piece that you had to do in 1 week, start to finish, and create an edition. But it was analog and digital. You had to do a combination of two. So I had to force myself into thinking, like, all right, why am I here? And I got here from a coin flip that I worked in the service industry for so long. And I made numerous coin flips of this sort, but to where I wanted to quit my job and pursue my dream of being, an art professor, a teacher, and follow my passion. The coin had always told me not to, but in this instance, it told me, all right, put in your 2 weeks, commit, and go to grad school. So this is the mountain of coins that got me here. And I identified as this rat because, like, for all intents and purposes, I shouldn't be here, but the rat always finds a way. If you ever tried to get rid of a rat infestation in your house, good luck. They always find a way. So from that, I immediately started. I was told in grad school that you had to come up with a thesis, and an idea of what are you about, not. To which, my main mentor, Brian O'Malley, told me, which is no, just first year, work on your toolbox. Fill your toolbox. Do everything that you have not done. Learn and expand. But still, in this, and you will find out through the process. I remember this, and you'll hear me like a broken record say, if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And that is something that is taken straight out of my Pops' playbook. So I started playing around with chance. And you can actually see this print back here. So whenever I try a new process, and I work with what I already know, what I already have. And so this is 336 party poppers that are filled with lottery tickets. And on the inside of them, there are little tokens that it costs $2 to play. And you can pop a party popper, and you could win either $8, $10, $2, $10, $50, $100, or you could win that print over there. And at the end of it, when it all is said and done and all party poppers have been popped, I would have made exactly $2. This was me like trying to be inventive. When I was heading to grad school, Jason Hackenworth asked me, because he was one that wrote me a letter of recommendation to get into the school, and I still credit him because he had been a visiting artist there. I still credit him with helping me get over that hump. He asked me, well, what do you want to do? Without hesitation, I said, I want to make new processes. I want to experiment. I want to play. I want to have fun, and be inventive. I want to do something that's never been done. And he asked why. I was like, because that's fun. And so I always do what's fun to me. And this led me into different experiments with making my own coins and ceramics that I would also intentionally weight to where when you flip them, they would tend to flip the way that I designed them to. And one of them is like there's multiple ones. There's work, and then there's work, then work. But there's multiple points there. But these were all like first year experiments of playing. Because the number one thing I get asked is like whenever somebody asks me about my body, how did you get here? Like what gave you this idea? Which is playing and experimenting. This other one was a self-portrait. I was going through a rough time. I took a picture of myself. That's not a cigarette. But this is also where it all started as well in Corpus Christi, where I went to grad school. Is I saw, which we don't have in Florida, this gigantic lottery ticket. This entire thing is a lottery ticket. It was huge. It was only $10. And I was thinking about fate and chance, probability, and I was also experimenting with the letterpress at Eckerd at the time. And this is about letterpress paper signs. So I thought, oh, I could print on this. I could use this. So I bought it, I scratched it, and I won $100. It being $10, I was like, well, I need to make an addition. So I bought 10 more. And so on and so forth. I kept on spending until I didn't have any money. And by the end of it, and I'll be honest with you, I actually didn't stop at zero. I thought the gambler in me was like, I got to -20. And it's like, oh, I can get back and keep on going. No. But I had about around almost 200 tickets. And these tickets were so vibrant, so colorful, and almost like disgustingly designed, and so beautiful to drag your attention to them. I thought, well, this is some material that I could work with. And at the time, I also was thinking about ephemera, and it's the impermanence of life, and the impermanence of like what you create as well. So I started experimenting with making my own tickets, because I still will say I'm a printmaker, but actually no. I often wear this jacket that says "not an artist," and it's funny that people will get upset at me for wearing that. Like of course you're an artist, when I'm like, no, I'm a maker. I make stuff, But anyway, so this is a woodcut combined with screen print that I also like. Being the inventive person, I wanted to make my own lottery tickets. So what it started off with was research. How are lottery tickets made? What is the coating on the top? It's latex. And I researched how to make it, if I could buy it. You could only buy it in bulk from China. And it's talk about toxic, it's very toxic. But I found a way that I could make my own lottery tickets by, making a print and then putting a film over it and then printing onto that, and then somebody could actually scratch off this ticket, and it'd be a functional ticket. But I thought that it was too straightforward, too easy. It's it's kind of been done before. So that led me to what I have. This is my first actual lottery ticket. and where I started really examining the value that we assign to ephemera. And this is actually a fully functioning legal lottery ticket. Because all you need to win a lottery ticket, you don't actually need to scratch anything off except for this little area right down there where there's a barcode. And all you need to do is scan the barcode to win. The game is just to keep you playing. So I didn't scratch it off, but all the information's on the back, and I protected the back of this. So no matter what you would say or anybody would say about my art or this piece, you could not tell me that this is not worth $10. It's undeniable because that's how much it costs, and it still is. But also the potential value of it is around $370,000. You know, so or possibly more if somebody really values my art that way. And also you'll notice that there is a common, you know, biblical theme in my art, and this also stems from my upbringing as a Presbyterian, but also my love of theology and like the study of religions across the world. The reason why I stuck to Christianity, because I actually was exploring a lot of different religions and like, you know, how they view the lottery, chance, probability, you know, all these outcomes of life, was because I hadn't lived those religions, like, you know, so this was more personally, this is what I knew. I knew Christianity, I knew Presbyterianism, and it was all thanks to this trip that my dad sent me on. But from there, I thought, instead of making my own lottery ticket, I wanted to make my own lottery ticket, but I wanted to do it in a way that doesn't exist. So I wanted to be inventive. And it got to the point where in critiques in grad school, my mentor, Ryan O'Malley, had to specify to other students that you don't have to be inventive. You know, like Joe's doing his own thing. You know, you don't have to be like Joe. But I wanted to create something new. So being a printmaker, I started collecting these tickets, and I found a little, like, you know, I talked to the convenience store clerks, and I get to know them. And I thought just to ask, like, if I put a trash can behind your desk or your register, instead of throwing those tickets away that you collect every day into the trash, could you throw them into mine and I would pick them up? And which technically is illegal, but they were all accepting of that. And so for 3 years I collected these lottery tickets every day, and I started off with 7 stores, and after 3 days I had to trim it down to 2 because I had bags and bags. The amount of lottery tickets that goes through a store every single day, it can come from just a handful of people. Like you've ever walked into a store and there's somebody scratching a ticket there, you have no idea how long they've been there. It was like me that one first day. But so I actually started to befriend these clerks, and they have stories of their own. And one of the things that I realized is that beyond of any profession, they are the ones that you most interact with, other than a profession that you are in, that you want to interact with other professions. Everybody goes to the grocery store, and interacts with clerks there, but that's only maybe once a week. Gas station and convenience store clerks, that's at least twice a week, but you pay them no mind and they are nameless to you, even though they have a name tag. And they're the ones dishing out dreams and dishing out these hopes. So I sought to actually make them into these 12 apostles of stripes, which we have 7-Eleven here in Texas. They have stripes, and I got to know their stories. And what I would do is I would actually first start off with a woodblock carving, and then transfer it, and then scan it. And this is why I put this together, so you could understand how exactly this process is done. Then I would create these wood panels, which you see here. And this is how it starts off. I print out a sheet that is exactly the size of the wood panel, and then I cut it apart. and I use that to collage and layer up these tickets, which I create a color palette. I also started seeing these tickets as pigment rather than actual tickets, because every single ticket has its own pigment. So I started to paint with these tickets. And I would create these really, really awesome collages, to which so many people would say, stop there. But this idea of destruction, the idea of ephemera, and like, it's not going to exist anymore, I wanted to see how far I could take it, and whenever I was collaging these, I also thought about the personality, and I always try and put a little bit of them into them. So any one of these saints that you see, they have names attached to them. Those names reflect who I came to know them as. Marcia the Jubilant, Anthony the Benevolent, Heather the Enabler, because she would always just offer me cigarettes right when I walked in the door. But I involved that into it. But then, even the symbols as well. But then, this is what comes next. In order to collage all these lottery tickets, I had to find a way to use them, because lottery tickets are very stiff. So I experimented with various different things. I got lucky on my first try, to be honest. I put them in water and I forgot about them. And after a day, I was like, oh no, I need to take them out. I found that you would peel them apart. Because the latex is solid on the top and the paper is solid on the bottom, you could peel them apart. So I would end up with just the paper backing, which is the rules and regulations, and then the front, which is what's supposed to draw you in. And so what we have here is, this is how these all started after I did the collage. I just completely covered them with the backings of them. So I have no idea where this thing is. So I'm building my scratch off. But because I have them all set in the same size, I can print out and create a stencil as long as I carefully measure. And measurements and me, we don't have a good time together, but this definitely taught me. And then I would stencil the same latex material on top of it, which in this case, the latex was screen print material, or screen print ink. And I would have this silhouette. And next came the laser. I thought, if I was a lottery ticket, how would I want to be scratched? How would I want to be destroyed? It's like, oh man, I want to be destroyed with a laser. We have this laser cutter at the college, which I actually had been doing some experimentations with before, and that's how I got to the laser. Was I originally wanted to see if I could actually scratch out these patterns with a laser, just controlling it and controlling the power of it. And I actually have to go down just to show, because it wouldn't work with it, but just to show the process of it. Hopefully it works. We never actually even tested it on here. Oh no. No. Won't even play on the desktop. Oh no. Well, you can't see the laser in action. Oh well. Yeah. Why is this not open? Did I break it? Did I break it? Well, anyway, so basically what I would use the laser for was to input the woodblock image that I scanned, and then project it and use the laser to actually take off just enough of that top layer that I put on there to reveal the tickets that are below it. So this is unfortunately the only picture that we have, but this is the laser cutter. So you can still see, it doesn't work. You can see the laser in action, you can see the silhouette here. And so you have to get just the right amount of power of the laser, right amount of power, right amount of speed, And then also it's different every single time because of the amount of glue and sedative that you use in that. So you can see this like little control panel at the very front of that where I can control it. I was basically a little DJ, just like, in every single spot where there was like a little bit of too much glue, a little bit too much of this, and like, if I wanted more contrast, and so on and so forth. So like nothing was guaranteed to me. It was just, I put it up to faith and chance. And so essentially what I created was a gigantic scratch off. And then also what did I do with the backs of the tickets? This is all part of my thesis show as well. It's called All or Nothing. The backs of the tickets were actually very important to me because they were the discarded materials, but also they're the rules, regulations, like, the fine print of life and whatnot. So I found this Virgin Mary in a thrift store. Basically, her name is the Virgin of Sweet Waiting. I thought that appropriate. And my goal was to actually destroy her slowly with one drip of water at a time. And so I created this paper cast mold of all of these backings. And you would see that this one drip at a time would drop on her. And thinking that, this is paper. I didn't add any glue to this. All I did was I created the mold and I put the paper in, but the thing that I didn't account for was that the backings of the tickets still have glue in them. And so with each drop, which this came to be known as perpetual blessings, with each drop and each blessing, each play, each prayer, she got stronger. So by the end of this, where I had to put her on there so carefully to where she wouldn't fall apart, by the end of this, I could knock somebody out with her. She was as hard as concrete. She just kept on getting stronger. So I mean, it really took on its own, and there was so many things about this piece that, like at the end, this whole altar that I created as well. She started to develop these wings in the back that I never saw, but so many people rushed up to me to say, "Did you see the wings?" Mm-hmm. No, yeah. But yes, so it was a phenomenal experience. But also with the tribute money is actually a hand-carved wood block. I really have wanted to do something with, pushing myself to something that I haven't done before. And, I was always fascinated with low relief and bas relief. And I wanted to do this. And how this actually came to be is from a story when my parents and I and my brother went to Italy. We went to the Brancacci Chapel, and we saw the tribute money as well as everything else in the raising of the sun, Thermopolis, Theophilus. I always get it wrong. But I was taken back by those two pieces, and I had to choose one. But we had this little tiny silver camera back in the day, like 2000s, the little Sony digital ones. And throughout the trip, I never asked for it. Like, I only asked for it to take pictures of people that I were in cafes and people on the street, because like it was my first time out of the country, and I was just like baffled by this idea that I would never see this person again. So the odds of me seeing this, like this is a moment in time that these structures, these places that we're visiting that have existed for thousands of years, they're going to be there if I ever want to see them again. This person, though, no. But the first time I asked for this camera was in the Brancacci Chapel, and my pops was a little bit taken back. Like, why? Why now? I remember saying this. Apparently he doesn't remember it, but I remember saying, I don't know, I'm going to do something with it someday. And lo and behold, the right place, right time occurred to where I created this piece. And to me, this isn't, just fitting in that it's a lesson on taxation. Jesus pays his taxes, so should you. But it's also the hopes and dreams of an entire city, because all of these tickets are collected from one certain area. So this is all the dreams and the hopes, the wants, the needs, the desires of people of a certain community. And this occurs all all over the country, and I started to believe as these tickets as votive tokens, in that, you know, the faith and the hope and the needs that the reason why they bought these tickets was fingerprinted onto these tickets. So this person, like, you know, and there are thousands upon thousands of tickets in there, and the reason why the price is so high is because I did a rough estimate, rough math. I actually had to stop counting after 20,000 because it was crunch time, but was that roughly that amount equates to the amount that was spent, and that was, you know, collected in 3 years. And then also, the best part about this was, you know, these were only some of the tickets that were left. I invited the community, all of those 12 apostles were at this show, and the apostles that you see here, they all came and they saw these 3 shopping carts filled with lottery tickets. Their first question was, where's the rest of them? But they also, they felt like rock stars. They felt like celebrities. And still to this day, whenever I see them, they still can't stop talking about it and like getting recognized. You know, getting admiration from, you know, people that would never even talk to them. You know, they're like, hey, I've seen you somewhere. And it was beautiful. And this Cynthia, I just remember her just weeping at the show, and I couldn't stop weeping myself. I was like, why are you know, feeling so emotional? Like, you know, I thought I did a bad job on her, to be honest. But she was just like, that's me. And nobody's ever drawn me. It's like, that's amazing. And then I don't know if you all know that there's a portrait over there of Pops. That was actually for a painting demo that I did, but I thought it fitting to include in here. But this is actually not just my Pops. At the end of the show, we traded shirts, just because it was my idea. But this is also my other print dad, Brian O'Malley, as well, which, you know, they're who got me here. So with that, sorry I'm very long-winded.
You've explained it to me before, but actually seeing the pieces, this is the first time I understand how they were done.
Oh, nice.
So,
I thought I was about to have to explain again.
no.
Ooh.
Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, still technically both of those pieces to the right and to the left are still technically worth $10, but also possibly worth $300,000. They're both unscrapped. Yes.
Hey, Joe, so one of the things that I noticed in this group, the Apostles group, is that they're depicted with the halos.
Mm-hmm.
And just like in the tribute money, the sort of saints and apostles are like working class people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So maybe, I don't know, I'm not familiar with stripes.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I can tell that these are working class people.
Mm-hmm.
How much is that part?
I mean, a lot of, like, you know, if you think about, like, you know, the apostles themselves, like, you know, a lot of them were not good people at the beginning, you know, but also, like, you know, whenever, like, society looks at people in stripes and just like, oh, you're working in a convenience store, you're not worth my time, you know, it's the overlook that, like, you know, they can be the saints of this world. But it's more so to that, not just that they were overlooked, but also that they were the ones handing out blessings that they could never get themselves, you know, because it's technically illegal for them to win the lottery. Yeah. So. Yes.
Arthur, your graphite pieces, about how long? Can you say about how long each one or one of them might take from start to finish?
No.
I knew you were going to say something like
This
that.
long.
Oh, what would be a short
range.
time? What would be a short time?
I mean, we're talking up in weeks, but I never counted, and it's not like I would work X hours a day. I wasn't working on the clock, but it would take weeks, months, you know.
Okay.
So yes, but no.
When did you first start doing your graphite? Like really, like these drawings?
Okay. Well, it was when I had my hexennial, actually, so that hexennial leave in 1987, the year after my mother passed away. I spent a year in Roswell, Georgia, and I had a studio, and all I could do in there was draw. And so that's what I did. I mean, there was no print lab, no dark room. All I could do was draw. So that's the moment I turned to drawing was, okay, this is what I can do here. But at the same time, I mean, I found that working at school, I was always distracted. So working away from school, and at home, I have a little studio in which I draw. So that just became natural, okay, that I would work on what I could work at, where I was at. And so that's when I turned to drawing, was on that initial leave, 1987, in Roswell, Georgia.
So let's say you're working on any one of these three. How much do you erase?
How much do I erase?
Yes.
I can't tell you that. I mean,
But you do have an active eraser at the same
oh
time.
yeah, sure. An eraser. I always think of an eraser as a drawing tool.
Right.
You know,
To do a negative
I mean,
space.
yeah. I mean, that's one thing I teach my drawing students. To think of the eraser not as a mistake corrector, but as a drawing tool.
Right.
A white maker, a highlight maker, a polish rubber. You know.
Open up the sun.
Yeah, yeah. But I you know, yes, I do erase, but not like in the negative way.
Can you speak to your perception of yourself as art?
Wow.
What?
I said, wow.
That was
question.
No, I mean, I'm astonished at what he's been able to do, and the inventiveness that he's demonstrated, as you have seen. That's an amazing woodcut. That's a woodcut over there. Yeah, I mean that's huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's amazing. Yeah, I'm proud pops.
So Joe, did the political moment in the big one, and that sort of come because of something that happened?
So first off, like with all this inventiveness, I do try and include, I take from traditional methods that I was taught by him. So I give him credit for that. But as for that one, like going back to even him talking about how he did his collage, that's how I do all my woodcuts. I did create that at a stoplight. I thought of the idea at a stoplight, and that's usually whenever I create my ideas or have ideas for some reason. But I always have to draw them out in just a little sketch and then create them. But it was actually I had a due date for this big ink submission, and this was actually printed here for big ink, and I couldn't think of anything to do, and I never done a self-portrait. I've done self-portrait, but I never liked them. And I needed a break. So, sorry mom and dad, but I went out to smoke a cigarette. And it was at Eckerd when I was trying to think of this. And Eckerd actually has police training there in the summertime. And they were doing drone training.
Right.
And I'm sitting at this isolated bench by myself. And this drone would not leave me alone. And I'm just trying to think and trying to clear my head, and this drone is just literally hovering above my head. So much to the point where I leave, and I have to go to the store, and on my way there, it's just like, is this the new America? Is this where, liberal arts colleges are being taken over by police and drones where I can't even think? And so, that's how I came up with the idea. And actually, I shot this by my best friend Cody's house, and he actually helped me with the photo. And it's a collage. The bush wasn't there, the sky wasn't there, the drone wasn't there, the umbrella was there. That's it. But putting those things together and combining those is just really fun for me, and it's just a nice way of, again, DJing.
the sky, like the chemtrail looking, is that like an allusion to your father's?
Yes, it is a nod to him. So there are it's like I pay my respects to my pops a lot in my art. To where like his coat hangers, you will never be able to find them. But I also include coat hangers in mine. Almost every one of these pieces has a coat hanger. You will not be able to, they might be covered up or whatnot, but like, I do it as a little ode to you. You taught me about, memento mori, so. Yeah.
Well, and I just want to comment on that. I've mentioned the skies as well, but I've described them as manneristic of the same skies as El Greco. But you describe yourself as a romantic. So, I mean, are we going to get an argument?
Were there jet trails in Mel Greco's day?
Or what? Yeah. Well, we don't know. You can believe anything on the internet these days. But what makes you think romanticism versus, let's say, mannerism? Or are those mutually exclusive?
Well, what can I say? For me, I see sadness and beauty together. For me, I mean, a city in decline, there's beauty in that, a sadness and beauty. And for me, that's tending towards the romantic. I mean, an awareness of death, that things in decline, rubble, it all fits to me as being something more romantic, graveyards, that kind of looking towards death, but recognizing the beauty in life, but sensing sadness and beauty together.
The sublime in the detail. The detail is so marked that if you begin to contemplate a single touch from your pen, from your pencil, all of a sudden the thing becomes explosive. And I studied a lot about the sublime and the romanticism, and that's what I see when I look at those. It's just like overwhelming. So, go ahead, you have an answer.
Joseph, are you continuing to work on this series, or are you taking a new direction?
With a lot of things, I still have them. So, I mean, eventually I'm going to use them, but, I mean, that's one thing that I feel like all artists inherit is being a hoarder of materials. But right now I'm moving on, focusing primarily on teaching, but that's not to say that I'm not making my own work, but
Sure.
typically right now I'm more being inspired to make work based on what my students are interested in. And I've been thinking about home a lot, so going down that direction. But chance, fate, probability, and ephemera will still always be a big part of my work. I always like, goodbye art, art that just is not permanent, that has no desire to stick around. When it goes, it goes, So.
That's a 2D painting in the first case. How did it occur to you to turn it into bas relief?
That's a good question. Sorry. It was actually a chance occurrence. Again, my mentor Ryan O'Malley got stuck at the airport. He was coming back from Finland, and he asked me to drive all the way to Houston to pick him up. So I had to go on this 3-hour long car ride, and I was so tired and sat in the front seat with him on the way back as he drove. But he told me about his trip, and he went to this museum that saw Michael Rakowitz, who did these amazing collages of Egyptian Chinese ads over Egyptian low relief, bas reliefs. That he was like, have you ever thought about doing this? And I was like, I actually had the perfect piece for that. And I thought back to I'm gonna do something with this someday. And the toughest part about doing that one though is because this is just a master in perspective. You know, having St. Peter 3 times, having Christ being like, you know, the focal point, like, you know, getting the perspective right on this was very, very tricky. And still, I'm still bothered by a couple spots. I like that you laugh, like you can see them. I know that you can.
Reverse image search works, so I'd say that's a success.
But it was an ode to Michael as well. But I just thought, like, you know, he used these advertisements. I got a bunch of tickets ready to go. So, and it's funny, at that point I was going to give up on the tickets. I was so sick of it. It was after the party popper piece, because I had to cut up all these tickets like into tiny squares, you know, millions of tiny squares to fill all of these party poppers. And my studio, for as massive as it was covered in all of these like little debris, and I couldn't get rid of them. And it was just, like I was at my wit's end, and I was like, maybe this isn't the way to go. And it was just that chance little interaction of him going to Finland at that time, seeing this artist, telling me, showing me, got me re-inspired to do this in that way. So
I get one line, and that can be my last question. But one of the things about your work that's obvious is its kind of poppiness, its relation to value, and how the art market and the institution of grad school and how that influences having a career in art, right? Like, how much of that is in the work? Because pop art is inherently about the market, right?
yeah, I mean, I used to be very cynical, and like I still am, about like, you know, the art world and art market in general. Well, anything that you see on Instagram now is actually just, you know, an algorithm that's geared to like make you hate art. I mean, it's not really about that at this point. I don't rightly see myself as a pop artist. Like, you know, if you see me as a pop artist, then, you know, maybe pop art is fun. You know, again, it's just like, you know, what I'm doing and like the manner that I'm going about it is just about having fun. I actually, like, you know, color is a recent addition to my toolbox. When I first got to grad school, I was just worked in black and white. If you can understand why, you know, this guy being my Superman, you know, for all my life, like growing up and teaching me all these things. I remember when he stopped being, well, you still are Superman, but, you know, when it stopped being Superman, he didn't have an answer for everything. Is when I asked him about color, and he was like,
Oh, that's blue.
and then, but I mean, that's why I started, like, you know, in my prints, they started including blue and sepia. You said red, by the way? Did you say red? Because I don't remember red ever being part of the work. Yes. Is it blue and brown? Blue and black, okay. But yeah, like blue and sepia were part of my work, but, you know, when I got to grad school, I wanted to explore color. And so I looked at a lot of contemporary artists, and printmakers specifically, for influence, and one of them, like, you know, that really stuck out to me was Caledonia Curry, or better known as Swoon. And, you know, that was definitely the most transformative experience in my art, and going to grad school. All these people that I thought, all these artists with these, that were legendary, that I only saw on the screen and whatnot, I got to meet, I was introduced to them, and now they're on my phone. Like, you know, I can call them, and, you know, just, I can reach out to them and be like, you know, what were your influences on this? Like, how did you do this technique, and whatnot? So, like, that was more of an influence on my art than anything cynical about. I mean, yes, I still think that capitalism is just, yeah, but, and that also goes back to me and Cody's time in middle school, at a little hippie school in Gulfport, Florida. Yes.
I'll make it quick, but I have one question about that in particular. So it's a personal question here, excuse me.
Personal
I
questions. Turn off the camera.
I went to the same middle school as you, right? So when I was there, we had an element of an investigation on, do that?
We did it, yeah. I only remember is the chocolate one.
I'm pretty sure we did. Because I remember I invented.
Oh, I did that,
Yeah.
yes, I invented the tool.
So when you were talking about.
Yes,
being
I
inventive-
invented it, and he actually helped me in the art department of Eckerd College. You remember the shovel that we had to cut apart? Because I wanted a shovel that could also cut wood. And yes, and also, I gotta get into that, but yeah, I painted it in the Soviet colors. So, yeah. It worked though, and I do remember that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I came out the demonstration, and it was a very pointed shovel.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought that I invented that, you know, apparently it already existed, but.
Very cool.
But I came out and worked and chopped the log in half, like one fell swoop, and my teacher was like, oh my god, it works. But anyway. Yeah. Also, I do want to thank Amanda and Betsy again. Thank you so much. Again, for as long as I live, this will be, until we do another Father's Home show, this will be the best show ever. So.
Do you guys ever collaborate on an actual work of art?
We're actually working on it right now. We'll come along.
Next time.